Thank you, Stacy. It's an honor to be here and to be able to be your servant, to speak to you, also to present the materials in the workshop on church renewal, transformation. I speak to you on a subject of great seriousness, and I hope you will give it at least your honest consideration. I am not a charismatic figure. I am just an old retired college professor, and if I sound like it, it's because that's who I am. And I just have to be who I am, folks. So I'm going to give you the best of my mind, and I hope the best of my spirit, guided by His Holy Spirit, pointing us all to Jesus, who is the author and finisher of our faith. May God help us to do that. In 2 Corinthians, in the 4th chapter, in verse 13, Paul wrote these words that they really, they've kind of controlled my mind and my heart and my thinking. In fact, the whole letter of 2 Corinthians I find very fascinating because I think he wrote to people in a culture, in a society, very much like we have evolved in Western civilization. And so I want you to consider chapter 4, verse 13. It is written, I believe, therefore I have spoken. With that same spirit of faith, we also believe and therefore speak, because we know that the one who raised the Lord Jesus from the dead will also raise us with Jesus and present us with you in His presence. All this is for your benefit, so that the grace that is reaching more and more people may cause thanksgiving to overflow to the glory of God. Therefore, we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. Now here's the crux of things, verse 18. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. There are two realities that challenge you: the outward, the temporary, the decaying. Everything you can perceive, that you can see, hear, taste, touch, and feel, it challenges you. There is also the inward, the eternal, the renewing. All you cannot see, you cannot reach with your five senses, presents a challenge. And the apostle, in writing this, recognized these two realities. They're real, they're important, and they demand differing responses from every one of us. And if we give the wrong responses, we're going to be in trouble. Deep, deep trouble. I'm going to suggest everything that's temporary that you can see, manage it. And that which you cannot see, fix your eyes on it. Now, look carefully at verse 18. It says, fix your eyes on what you cannot see. When Paul wrote that to those believers in the city of Corinth, he chose the Greek word scopio. It's translated in our Bibles, fix your eyes. Scope, you see that? The root of our word, scope. The word meant direct your attention to something as if you have a duty toward it. Direct your attention to something as if you owe it your interest. Now listen to what he's saying. Fix your eyes on that which you cannot see as if you owe a duty toward it, as if you have an interest in it. But don't fix your eyes on things you can see as if you owe something to it, have a duty to it. Because what you can see is decaying. And if you tie yourself into what you can see, then you have tied yourself into something that is decaying, and it's temporary. And I'm telling you, the rug will be pulled out right from underneath of you, and you're going to go into decline. That's the message. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't manage what we can see. And there's two realities that challenge us. And I think we should manage what we can perceive, our systems, our technology, our programs, all of the tools. But we ought to do that with the expectation that the time is coming. We must abandon everything and be willing to abandon everything that is traditional and has given us comfort and that has worked in the past. We must be willing to abandon it in the present in order to be faithful to God's calling to us today and tomorrow and as long as He gives us time. I know very little about this church, but I know everything about you as an organization simply because I am a student of organizational growth and organizational development. Now, I want you to understand that. I know your very heart and soul as an organization, and I know your history, although I don't know a single fact about you specifically. But generally and universally, I know what the research says about you. The great failure of all groups that are organizations, like First Christian Church, the great failure is that over time, the members of that organization will fix their eyes on their structures, their technologies, their processes, their tools, as if they owed a duty toward them, as if they are eternal. And I tell you, they're not eternal. Everything you can see, everything you can touch, everything that you work with is temporary. And then what happens if you fix your eyes on what you can see? You develop a sense of duty toward that which decays. Now I'm impressed. You've got a great building here. And I just have to tell you, it's decaying. And if you fix your eyes on this building or anything like this, you have fixed your eyes on that which the Apostle Paul said, don't. Because it's temporary, and you've got to be willing to abandon the temporary and fix your eyes on that which is eternal. Now, the record of past nations and past corporations and current corporations teach us very clearly that if you fix your eyes on yourselves, if you fix your eyes on your way of doing things, your structures, your programs, your processes, what you're going to do is ensure the decline of your organization. It'll happen inevitably, and you cannot escape it because time has an arrow, and it's pointed right at you. I want to read an excerpt by James Michener, that historian, scholar, and novelist. In his old age, and probably an excerpt from the last book he wrote entitled, "This Noble Land, My Vision for America." And I read this and I want you to think about how it applies to First Christian Church. As I approach my 90th birthday, I often reflect upon my life in the United States, enjoying the nation, what this nation offers now, but shuddering at the pitfalls that threaten us in the years ahead. I believe that the basic strengths of our nation are such that we can survive as a world leader till about the year 2050. But I am not so sure about the long term. I have spent my adult life studying the decline of once great powers whose self-indulgent errors condemned them, not only to decline, but in many cases to extinction. Where is the grandeur of Assyria? Where are the glorious legions of ancient Rome? Where is the far-flung greatness of the British Empire? They're all gone. The life cycle of empires and individual nations involves genesis, exploration, accomplishment, expansion, then loss of courage, contraction, lost mobility, and decline. I have never thought that America was exempt from that rule of destiny This great and worthy nation that has built a new and better life for millions of citizens will also fade slowly and end as every previous empire has. We are not exempt from that universal law of obsolescence, but we have one impressive fact to sustain us. Of all the forms of government operating today, ours is the longest lived. We are the outstanding success. We are the survivor whose basic roots were sound to begin with and were improved and nurtured. Now, with the dedication to the principles that made us great, we can at least borrow time till 2050. But in the next half century, we can light new candles of excellence, protect the ones we already have, and gain an extension. I wish I could witness the years ahead. They should be riveting as we face one crucial choice after another. I hope our genius for doing the right thing will guide us. Now, folks, that applies to nations and that applies to First Christian Church. Birth, growth, expansion, maturity, and then plateau, decline, and in some cases, demise. It's almost a universal law. I read again from an article that I think you can relate to this, particularly those of you who have gray hair like I have and arthritic joints. There's an article in Fortune magazine entitled Dinosaurs. The year was 1963. The speaker was America's most famous chief executive officer. He talked about the difficulty successful organizations face in maintaining strength and might. The speaker was Thomas Watson Jr., chairman of IBM. IBM in 1963 was a monarch. Watson could not have dreamed that he was foreseeing his own company's failure. Neither could he have imagined the fading of two other giants of the day, General Motors and Sears Roebuck. Had a ranking been compiled in the 1960s of the large companies most likely to succeed, these three might have well headed the list. Yet these three lost a total of $32.4 billion in 1992. It is truly amazing to see these legends struggling all at once as if they had suffered an industrial accident, which is fundamentally what they did. They just did not keep up. They went lame in similar ways. They acquired the usual encumbrances of success, among them arrogance and bureaucracy and complacency. They devised new ways to fail as well, or precisely their executives did. Companies don't stumble, and I'll say churches don't stumble. Every failure is a failure of management and leadership. The normal and ruinous problems of success and complacency are size. Sears, IBM, and GM got to the top by beating their competitors, and they were driven to success by strong executives. But the leaders who came next were not visionary nor forceful, and they'd all inherited strong, dominant companies that seemed secure. What swept over these companies was profound change in their markets, the external environment out there in America, to which they were required to adapt, and they didn't, neither fast enough nor fully enough. At bottom, these three troubled companies were constricted by their cultures, the way we do things around here. It constricted them. When a company gets to the top, the process of how they make decisions becomes more important than what they decide. And they start focusing inwardly. And these companies did not fix their eyes on their customer. Rather, they looked inward and backward, remembering how it used to be, and somehow expecting the glories of the past to appear, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Those of you who grew up buying things at Sears, I think you can really relate to that. How could a little man down in Bentonville, Arkansas, driving a little Ford pickup, beat Sears Roebuck? But Sam Walton did, and does. And one of these days, I predict, Sam Walton will be beat by a new competitor. Don't fix your eyes on what you can see. The way we do things around here, the way it's always been done, what achieved success in the past, because it won't sustain that success today or tomorrow. In your bulletins, there's a handout. It's the S curve. All this does, folks, is simply graph what I have just read to you about IBM, General Motors, and Sears, Assyria, British Empire, America, First Christian Church, Clemmons, North Carolina. All living organisms follow this graph. There it is. I want you to consider your physical body. Every one of you in this room, the moment you were born, Time, the great archer, drew the bow with the arrow in place and aimed that arrow right at you, and there's a bullseye on you. And you're not going to escape it. It's inevitable. Birth, growth, maturity, and then decline and death. All living systems, all living organisms follow the sigmoid curve, the S curve. And it's inevitable. And it's almost inevitable in organizational life too, although it isn't inevitable. But almost all organizations follow this curve from birth to decline. And I simply give that to you to ask you to take it along and thoughtfully consider it in your own lives here together as you serve God. Time has an arrow aimed at every person, every building, at your car, by the way. Even if it's brand new, I guarantee you, that thing is wearing out. Every movement, every organization, every technology that you use, that arrow hits the bullseye without failure in every organism and almost without failure in every organization. Please consider time's arrow is aimed at the technology of First Christian Church, meaning the way you do things around here and the things you do them with as you try to fulfill God's mission that He's given you. Your building, your parking lot, the hymns, your personnel, the sermons, lessons, the bulletin, attending church, inviting people to attend, and the way we do things. Don't fix your eyes on those because they're wasting away. You need to fix your eyes on the eternal. And if you fix your eyes on what you can see and the way we've done things around here all the time, you're going to be in big trouble because time has an arrow aimed at all of that. And time will hit that arrow. Why? How does time have an arrow aimed at your church, your technology, the way you do things? Well, just a couple of simple reasons. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but the environment external to every organization changes all the time, constantly. People's expectations and values and their momentary needs change rapidly and continuously. And you've got to adapt to that, and if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. I would not advise anybody today to invest in companies that produce typewriters, or don't plan, young people, to spend your life making your money repairing typewriters. There's not much interest in typewriters. Paper products and Velcro have made our interest in diaper pails kind of irrelevant. Who buys a diaper pail anymore? But you know, when I was a young parent, that was a big thing in our life. We had to have diaper pails, and we used them all the time. But we didn't have Velcro and paper products like you have today. We've got a car. My wife bought a new car. and it's got a global positioning system in it. We have no more interest in maps. Now, it used to be, before we ever went on a trip, I just had a whole stack of maps to make sure that I didn't get lost. I'll never take another map. You see, my wife she does her magic thing on that, and there's some girl that tells me where to go on that trip. The external environment changes constantly, and our expectations and our momentary needs change. And the organization that's so inwardly focused that you won't adapt to that, you don't realize that, you're going to get caught on this curve with time's arrow because it's aimed at you. And that's what happened to IBM and General Motors and Sears. The other thing you need to think about is that rate of change is changing also. I found this little neat thing about the horse. It says the horse domesticated. The horse was domesticated about 2,500 BC, but the stirrup wasn't invented until 500 AD. It took 3,000 years for the stirrup to be invented after the horse was domesticated. Well, today it would take us maybe, how long do you think? 90 days is a digital year, at least it was a few days ago, and maybe it's shorter than that. Consider this. Gunpowder was slow in making the transit from discovery to application. 500 years passed between the first known use and the earliest rifles, and so little progress was made in rifle development over the next 300 years that Benjamin Franklin proposed to the Continental Congress of the United States during the American Revolution that the American Army be equipped with longbows. Think about that. Today, say you need a computer, and so you go down and you buy a computer at the shop, and the mere fact that the thing is for sale means it's already obsolete. And you get it home, and it already is obsolete. So the rate of change, not only things are changing, but the rate of change is changing. If you fix your eyes on that which is seen, you are a contributor to your own demise and death. I mean, that is a universal fact, and you're not going to escape it unless you intentionally and strategically say, okay, it's time that we became an innovative, creative, growing, changing, dynamic group of people on earth. Or else you go the way of Sears. There just seems to be also a law of nature that says systems tend to run down. Any system that we have tends to run down. You know the second law of thermodynamics that says things tend to fall apart and wear out and become disorganized. We've got to deal with that also, and that's why time's arrow is aimed at us. I just simply want to say that this means if you fix your eyes on your past success, it will lead to your decline in the present and probably your failure in the future. Now, the threat to you, to your two realities from time's arrow is very different. You can do very little, my dear friends, to dodge time's arrow in your visible world, and your prayer request today show it. You can watch your diet, you can exercise, you can drink filtered water and wash the pesticides off your vegetables and do all those neat things, which you should do. But it's appointed unto us once to die, and you're not going to escape that. I accept that as a fact of life. And I tell you, as I stand here before you today, hopefully I sound very energetic, and I want you to look at me. I have an incurable bone marrow cancer, and there is no hope for me. Time's arrow was aimed at me, and it's going to hit me, and it's hit me hard. And I watch what I eat, and I drink, and I'm in the gym every day, and I exercise, and I am the essence of what you ought to, how you ought to live. And then what I'm going to get out of it, it's maybe 2 years. And you're in the same condition, aren't you? Now, if you're honest, every one of us are in the same condition. And so we just do the best we can, and we live by faith, and we don't fix our eyes on what's seen here, because our home is in glory. This world is not my home. I'm just passing through. But what about fixing your eyes on the way we've always done things around here? You can dodge time's arrow in your social world if you don't fix your eyes on it. First Christian Church can learn to become a continuously renewing organization and escape decline. You can continuously jump to new S-shaped curves. You're not condemned to die or to go into decline as an organization. But you've got to commit yourself to constant experimentation, risk-taking, and trying things, and abandoning what worked in the past. And that's a painful, frightening thing to do. And if you sense what I'm saying and it kind of frightens you and emotionally upsets you, I'm right with you. I'm such a chicken to change, I won't even come to church without wearing a tie. See how conservative I am? And I want all my stockings to be the same color. I don't want change, but I know that mentality is going to make me a big target for time's arrow. And in my organizational life, in my church, if I think and act that way, I am a contributor to the weakening and the declining of my church. It's just a fact of life. How can you dodge time's arrow at First Christian Church? For one thing, you've got to discriminate between your unseen and your seen. And you've got to fix your eyes on what is unseen. And I'm telling you folks, what's unseen is the Lord Jesus Christ, who ascended to heaven, and the mission that God gave you, and the values that He gave you. We can't see those things with our eyes. Fix your eyes on those things. And discriminate those things from your processes, your programs, how you do things around here. Those are the things that you've created. They didn't come down from the mountaintop. Don't fix your eyes on those. Be willing to abandon them all to jump to a new growth curve with new ways of doing things by trial and error, risk, and experimentation. So you hold to what is invisible and you experiment with what is visible, what you can see, and you will grow. God has given you your mission, your core values. Fix your eyes on them for stability, continuity, and faithfulness. But on the other things that you can see, experiment, take risk, innovate to fulfill your purpose successfully tomorrow and in the future. Research clearly tells us what achieved success in the past will not sustain success in the present. All the research I have read on organizational growth and development and behavior teaches us that. You must be willingly to bear the pain to creatively destroy what you've always known in order to fulfill your mission in the present. And I'm telling you, to say that hurts. It hurts. I want to read a statement, if I can find it. Well, I can't find it. It's from Thomas Watson, Jr. of IBM. But he said this. He was a great leader of IBM. He said, what makes an organization great? He said, the research shows this. You have a sound set of beliefs and you hold to those beliefs no matter what. In other words, you never change from your core values and your mission as you move through time. But on the other hand, everything else about you, you change. Everything you must be willing to give up. Hold to the core and continuously experiment around the perimeter, the periphery. So that's what makes a great company. And of course, his company failed to do that and got themselves in trouble. And any organization that fails to do that will be in trouble. Now I want you to consider the text. 2 Corinthians 4:13 through 18. The outward decays, the inward renews. If you as a church want to dodge time's arrow, don't fix your eyes on how you do things around here and have always done them, because changes in the external world will make those ineffective. If you fix your eyes on the visible rather than the invisible, then your ways of thinking and acting will become rigid, and time's arrow, it'll get you, and you're not going to escape it. America in 2008, just a few days from now, 2008, differs from America of 1850, 1900, 1950, and 1990. And what worked in 1800 and 1900 and 1950 probably will be very ineffective in 2008. And if you change and you transform yourselves into a highly dynamic organization for 2008 and it works, let me tell you this, it'll be different in 2015 and you'll have to do it all over again. But all living systems have to adapt like that. If you want to be a living system, you have to adapt. Now, friends, the gospel of Jesus Christ doesn't change. And Jesus is the same today, yesterday, and forever. But how we tell the gospel to the world and where we and when we tell it has to change. It just has to, as the external environment changes. Fix your eyes on the gospel and Jesus. It never change, but don't fix your eyes on your methods and your processes and your programs. Fix on the invisible. Now, time's arrow has hit the bullseye of America. And our national greatness may have been mortally wounded, never to be recovered. That may have happened. And I argue painfully that maybe this is because of the church's present ineffectiveness to influence our culture. Maybe. I want to read a short article from Wall Street Journal written by a former Secretary of Education, William Bennett. Listen very carefully because this involves your life in the church since 1960. Since 1960, the U.S. population increased by 40%. Gross domestic product tripled. Social spending by all levels of government rose from $143 billion to $787 billion. Inflation-adjusted spending on welfare increased by 630%. Spending on education increased by 225%. But during those same 30 years, there has been a 560% increase in violent crime, a 419% increase in illegitimate births, a quadrupling in divorce rate, a tripling of the percentage of children living in single-parent homes, more than a 200% increase in teenage suicides, and almost an 80-point drop in SAT scores. 1960 to 1990. What are we doing? Light of the world and salt of the earth. What are we doing? Perhaps more than anything else, America's cultural decline is evidence of a shift in the public's attitudes and beliefs. The powers exercised by institutions of social control, family, church, school, have been constrained, and people, especially young people, have embraced an ethos that values self-expression over self-control. And on and on and on. And I won't read all of that, but I want to suggest we are losing the cultural war. I conclude. You can pour your resources into processes and policies and tools that achieve past success. You can choose to do that. Or you can innovate and experiment and take risks to increase your faithfulness in the present and the future. Those are your choices. Invest in what worked in the past, just put more and more into that. Or you can choose to be on the cutting edge of how we do things around here. You have that choice. You're free to. Now I ask in closing this serious question from history. And folks, it's a question that's haunting me now more and more every day. When facing these two choices, invest in the past or innovate and renew in the present that which you can see, what choice did the 7 churches of Asia make that are written to in the book of Revelation? What choice do you think they made? That's in the land of Turkey today. What choice did the churches of Antioch, Iconium, Lystra, and Derbe make? They are in the land of Turkey. What choice did all of the churches in Galatia make? Why do I ask that question? Here's a nation that was filled with congregations of believers in Jesus like you. Like you. You go there today, what are you going to find? You will see the minaret, and there will be a call from the minaret 5 times a day for the Muslims to face Mecca and get down on their rug and pray to Allah. Where are those churches? Where are all those Christians that ought to be in Turkey? We were there. We were big. We had the market share. Gone, gone. Why? Why? I don't really have an answer to that question. But somewhere along the line, time's arrow was aimed at them, and it hit the bullseye. And faced with the choice of holding to the past, which wasn't working anymore, rather than experimenting and taking risks to become a dynamic, growing church with new methods, they must have held to the past. And they died, just like our physical bodies die. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, I love you dearly, but my much study has turned me mad. And you can probably see that. And I've made a choice to inform myself, educate myself, or live in the blissfulness of ignorance. And I speak out of my heart of love and concern for the whole world and the kingdom of God. Oh, Church of God, rise up before time's arrow hits you.